This is a craft for a winter scene banner. You can do whatever winter scene you want. I chose to do trees, but you can always make a banner of other things if you'd like. The possibilities are endless. This is what my completed banner looks like with several trees, and I'm going to, it's not glued together now, I'm going to take it apart and show you how I made it. So let me slowly take my layers of trees off and my sequins and all the goodies I have on here. I started with just a piece of felt, a light blue piece of felt for sky, just a regular size piece, and I hot glued a dowel rod to the back of it. I used a dowel rod that is only 1/8 of an inch wide, or if you're doing it metrics, it's 1/2 of a centimeter wide, the diameter of it. You can always make a bigger banner with a bigger dowel rod if you want, longer or thicker. Then I took yarn and twisted it around, hot glued it, and then twisted the yarn around the ends to hang it. I did not roll my felt over top of the dowel rod just because I needed longer felt, but you can do whatever you think looks best. Then I decided, after I had that, then I needed to make my Christmas trees. And what I did, the template I used, I got from a library book, Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree by Robert Barry, because I knew it had a perfect Christmas tree shape. And I just ran it off on the copy machine until I got the right size that I wanted, big enough for the felt, but still small enough that it didn't take completely over the felt. I made several copies because first I cut it out of the white paper and did the edges the way I wanted them. And then I decided, well, I was going to need to have an original so that I could make copies. So that was my original. This is one of my copies, and I started cutting. And I cut the bottom and the sides. And what I did, what you do need to make sure you do, have 2 separate pairs of scissors. Maybe a pair of scissors that's not as sharp for paper, because paper really dulls scissors. And then I always have a extra very sharp pair of scissors that I cut material with. And I don't let anyone use this, not my nieces or nephews who are always wanting to do crafts. These get hidden because they're for cutting material. I, of course, picked felt for the snow, and I wanted white felt for the snow. And then I picked out 4 different colors of green material that we just had here at the library, just so that there was some plain and some patterned. I had originally planned to make some stems for the trees out of brown material, and then I forgot that that's what I was going to do and made my whole thing. And then I walked in here to film this and was like, oh, there's the brown material that I was going to use for stems, which I forgot to use, so I'm not going to do that. But if you wanted to, you could make little stems for your Christmas trees or any other kind of tree you're wanting to do. Just pick out whatever brown material and cut out whatever you want. Now, the way that I got the Christmas tree cut on the material was, after I cut out my pattern, then I pinned it onto the material. I used 3 pins for a bigger piece of material and a smaller tree. And then you just basically, I started cutting this, but I wanted to show you. I cut up through here, and then just the easiest way for me is to cut little pieces. I cut a triangle off after I pinned my material on there, after I pinned my papered material. Then I just cut. Now, if you are a quilter or seamstress, you probably have a pair of rotary cutters that make it a lot easier, and you can cut on a flat surface, but I am not into quilting, so I don't have all the cool tools that a quilter has or a seamstress has, so I just have some very sharp scissors. But you just start cutting away the material until you get the tree shape all the way around. And you can see I've cut little pieces here. And this is what I came up with, my first big tree. And I'm not going to glue the felt on down there quite yet, because I want to get everything layered the way that I want. But I got this one centered, however, that I thought it looked good. And after I get everything laid out, then I'm going to glue it. But after I got my biggest tree cut, then I needed to make smaller trees. And what I did with my pattern, I made sure I had plenty, and I just successively cut my tree down. I cut the bottom half off until I got a smaller tree and a smaller tree. Here's the nice tiny tree I made, until I got all the sizes that I wanted, and then I pinned them to the material that I needed, so that when I went to do this green, which is this shade of green right here, I just pinned it on there and cut it out around. Now I did cut these little branches on the bottom. You know, it's up to you how you cut it. On the first one, I just pretty much cut it just kind of swooped at the bottom. As you can tell, this one is kind of swooped. It's not very detailed like this one. If you see trees in the snow, sometimes the branches are sticking out, or sometimes the snow's piled up around them. And sometimes the trunks are showing and sometimes they aren't. So it's however you want to cut it. And because I don't like to get rid of scraps, all my teeny tiny scraps that I had after I cut the material, I was like, I could make those into teeny tiny trees and make myself a whole forest scene here. So that's what I did. So after I cut, just several different colors of material, different patterns, just to make it pretty, then I decided how I wanted to layer it on. And I know I had it layered one way, and who knows how I'm going to get it layered now, because I can't remember how I had it. But we will try and see what works here. You just figure out, I don't know how long it took me to lay it out over there. I just kept laying it out till I figured out something that I liked. Moving the felt around and moving the trees around. This one was where I cut it on the edge, and I had this little half of a tree left, and I was like, well, if you take a picture of a forest, you are going to have parts of a tree showing. You're not going to have a whole tree showing. So I just did part of a tree and put that there. And this is probably going to look different than the original one I showed you before I took it all apart, because I don't remember exactly how I had it. But you just layer it however you think it's going to look pretty. You can pick, of course, different shades of green, different patterns. I had originally thought I would use green felt, and I'm glad I didn't, because that would have been harder to cut, and I would have probably screamed trying to make it exactly look like that. And I just kept fooling around with it until I found the way that looked best. And like I said, I'm sure I'm not going to get it looking like I originally did before I took it all apart. I'm going to turn this over because that material was curved in. Now basically, a good seamstress will tell you that you should iron your material before you cut it and everything. And that had been my plan, but I didn't have a lot of time. So instead of ironing it, I just cut trees out of parts that weren't actually wrinkled. So that's why some of my trees are very tiny, but if you were in a forest, you would have very tiny trees, and you would have bigger ones. Or you might cheat like this. Let me see if I can get that to look like a tree behind there, because trees are layered in the forest. Whenever I do stories with children where I have felt items, I layer trees to make it look like a forest, because a real forest would be layered. Now you could actually also cut out a sun if you wanted to. You could cut out and make animals if that's something that you're interested in. I had gotten some red material thinking I would be very artistic and cut out a red bird, and I realized that that would take far too long because I am not very talented with drawing, and so I decided against that. But I think I'll leave it looking like this maybe. I'm not quite sure how I want this little tree. He's kind of different. Maybe stick him there. Anyway, after you decide how you want the tree laid out, all your trees in your forest, then I also went back in the library stash, and we have all kinds of glitter, and it's called confetti in the stores too, where they have different shapes. I buy confetti year round. I've bought dinosaur confetti, baby shower confetti, Christmas confetti, birthday confetti, Happy New Year confetti. Any kind of confetti you can think of, I have probably bought it. And it's all mixed together, which is fine because it looks pretty. And whenever the kids do crafts here, they are just thrilled to actually find different shapes and things and put them on their creations. This one's sticking to my fingers because of static electricity. I just went and grabbed a bunch. I just want it to be sparkly. You may not. You may like it just plain. I love sparkles. Everything can be improved with sparkles. Everything can be improved with glitter and sequins, but then the janitors hate you for having glitter all over, because you put glitter on in September and it's still there the next May. I didn't have any particular pattern for these. I'm just kind of laying them out in a random course. I can't get this one picked up, so he may not go on there. Anyway, that's how it's just laid out. I just decided how I wanted to lay it after I cut it. And of course the cutting took quite a while, longer than what I'm showing you. And then I'm just going to glue it on. Now I've got the hot glue gun going just in case I need it, but I'd rather use tacky glue anytime because it's easier to control and you don't burn yourself. And any of you that have watched me do some of these crafts before have noticed that I tend to get busy talking and forget and burn myself, which is also why I don't use a high temp glue gun. I use a low temp glue gun because it doesn't burn quite as badly and quite as quickly. With this kind of glue, it does dry clear, so if you don't get it on there perfectly, like right now some of my snowflakes have glue coming up in between their edges, that's okay. It's going to dry perfectly. This is the kind of thing that you can make with it not specifically being Christmas. You could leave it up all year long, or you could, or all winter long I mean. You can also make Christmas scenes or any other kind of scene as a banner if you want. I know when we were little, my sisters and I and my mom made a Santa scene like this for my grandma, and she had that up in her house until the day she moved out of her house. She just always hung it as a decoration. I can see in my mind's eye exactly where it hung on her living room wall. She loved it, and it was something that we made, and it was a craft that she appreciated, and she could think of us anytime that she saw it, and she used it all the time. Like I said, the only reason I'm putting these sparkles on is because I think everything looks better with sparkles. But you don't necessarily have to do a sparkly one. And if this is a craft that your children are doing, you know, they can have fun. They can have tons of sparkles on theirs. They can have one tree. They can have presents that you cut out. The only reason I used a template for the trees is because I'm not an artist. Though actually, for the teeny tiny trees that I just made out of the scraps, those I just kind of eyeballed. So if they're not straight, that's why, because like I said, I'm not an artist. After you get all the glue on all the sequins, then you can get the glue on, well, that one's sticking to my finger. We'll stick this one there. Then you can glue the trees. You will probably want to leave this lying flat overnight so that it will dry. I still can't get that sequin off my finger. That is the one problem with tacky glue. It does work very well. Okay, let me glue down this little guy. And because I'm just gluing this now as I talk to you, it may need more layers of glue. I mean, tomorrow I might come in and some of this might be loose, which is entirely possible because it is just fabric, and I'm just, you know, gluing it down as I'm talking on the camera. So I may have to glue down some more edges tomorrow, which tacky glue is a pretty good thing to hold tight, and it's fairly easy to work with. I tend to like tacky glue more than Elmer's for crafts because it dries stronger, and I think you can wash it, though I have never washed anything that I glued with tacky glue. Let me finish getting my snowdrifts glued on here. Now, you may notice that my snowdrifts are a little bit wider than my blue felt, which I just thought all felt came in standard sizes, but apparently my white was wider. So, because I am not good at eyeballing stuff, I just decided that I was going to glue the felt down first, and then I would finish cutting the edges of it to make sure the edges were straight, because like I said, I am not a very good artist. Now, as you can see, I moved my felt down too far, and my little green edge tree, I can just barely see that there is some blue sky at the bottom of the tree, which is goofy looking. So if you make a mistake like that, you can do what I think I'm going to do, put my little Christmas tree in front of it, or you can cut yourself some more felt to make another snowdrift. Anything to cover up a mistake will work, because mistakes happen. Let me finish gluing these last 3 trees on here, and it will be done. See if I can cover up this mistake to where it doesn't look too dorky. And I don't think I had originally, I think I originally didn't have the snowdrift in front of this tree, but then when I flipped it around to glue it, it came apart. So that's all right. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to put this glue on here. And like I said, tomorrow I'm going to leave this drying flat. And tomorrow when I come in, if it needs more glue on the edges, it's not that hard to do. It may very well need more glue on the edges because since it's hanging, we don't want it coming loose. But I'm not wanting to take up too much of your time showing me glue every single square inch of this. But there is my winter scene banner. And if you want to do more decorations, you can. You could put a star on top. You could decorate the other trees. You could leave them all bare. You could maybe find some little material, birds or anything. Just do whatever makes you happy. Make this a pretty craft for Christmas or for winter. Thank you. Goodbye.